guys, welcome back to my vlog. So if this is your first time here, I'm Nora, born and raised in Vietnam, and I'm currently a university student in New York City. So I make video about my daily life as an international student with lots of interesting experience in one of the most vibrant city in the world. So if you're interested, make sure to hit subscribe to see more of my videos. Today's the last day of school. I literally just finished my final class of freshman year like half an hour ago. It feels so unreal, like I still can't believe I just finished my freshman year. But yeah, this year has been very special and different for me. It's my first time living in first time in college, first time living far away from my parents, and first time living in a foreign country. So which is why a lot of things have changed, and I've been figuring out a lot about myself along the way. So yeah, in today's video, I'm just gonna sit down, grab a cup of Starbucks, and talk a little bit to reflect on my journey and what I've been figuring out about myself. So after 1 year, I think the biggest thing that I realized about myself is that I actually have multiple versions of myself. Okay, let me explain. So as you guys know, I grew up in Vietnam. I went to an international student where I had a lot of friends from all over the world. I was also exposed to a lot of Chinese clients through my family business. And now I'm studying in the United States. So at this point, I'm using 3 languages every day. So English in school, Chinese as a tutor, and Vietnamese as I call and text my family every single day. But what I realize is it's not just about switching languages. So in different situations, when I talk to different people, I kind of just switch into a completely different version of myself. It's not just the language, but the way I think, the way I judge things, the way I see different situations, my tone, my voice, even my energy. Everything just shifts together. So it's like each version of me carries its own mindset. And I think that's because I've been exposed to a lot of different cultures where people behave differently, think differently, and have different expectations. So over time, I didn't just learn new languages, I actually developed different versions of myself to match to those different environments. So let's say, for example, the way I talk to my professor here is very much different from the way I talk to my teachers back then in Vietnam. So in Vietnam, we use a system of respectful language. That means we don't just have I and you. Actually, we use different pronouns to address different people depending on the person's age, status, and our relationship with them. Also, when talking to people older than me, I have to use honorifics. Even if someone is just 1 year older than me, I already have to change the way I address them and use these honorifics word when talking to them. That small change actually carries a whole different level of respect in how I perceive that person. So when I'm speaking Vietnamese, I automatically become more careful with my words and more aware of how I present myself. But here in English, the language just feels more neutral. So I can talk to someone who's 1 year older than me almost like I'm talking to a friend. So this semester, I took a theology class and I came over a concept that felt very, very close to me. It is the mestiza consciousness. So first of all, some of you may already know that a mestiza refers to a woman of mixed racial or cultural background. So even though I'm not a mestiza by definition, I share very similar experience. Mestiza consciousness is a feminist framework developed by Gloria Anzaldúa in her 1978 book, Borderlands, La Frontera, The New Mestiza. It described the idea that when you live between different cultures, languages, and ways of thinking, you don't fully belong to just one. Instead, you learn how to exist in between to constantly navigate different perspectives, different expectations, and contradictions, to hold multiple identities at the same time, finally developing a state of mind that embraces blended identities and reconcile conflicting cultural, racial, and gender realities. So my experience connects to Anzaldúa's mestiza consciousness, but it also changes the way I understand it. So in Anzaldúa's writing, living between cultures is not easy. It comes with tension, confusion, and even pain, like very intense, as she wrote. Cradled in one culture, sandwiched between 2 cultures, straddling all 3 cultures and their value systems, La Mestiza undergoes a struggle of flesh, a struggle of borders, and inner war. And this, where she emphasized cultural collision. And this, she says, the mestiza has to develop a tolerance for contradictions, a tolerance for ambiguity. And to a certain extent, I do relate to that. There were a lot of moments where I was wondering if I was slowly losing my original identity or like I wasn't fully anything anymore. Because none of my versions feel completely full on their own. Like when I switched to what I call my American version, I'm not fully American. There's still parts of me that think and react differently. But when I'm in my Vietnamese version, I'm not exactly the same as someone who has spent the whole life only in Vietnam. Even in very minor things, like the way I take notes, I mix languages together in the way that doesn't fully belong to anyone's system. No one but me can understand my note. But honestly, I'm much more fortunate Because to me, it doesn't feel as intense or painful as the way Anzalias described. I mean, the fact that you have to fight within your inner war. So my experience of being in between comes more from moving across cultures and languages in a globalized world rather than being caught between system of race and gender in Azalia's story. So instead of questioning whether I was becoming less myself, I started to realize that maybe identity is not something I have to preserve in one original form. Maybe identity is something that grows as I go through different spaces. So instead of seeing these different versions of myself as a side that I am divided, why do I see them as layers? Each one carries a part of my experience, my memory, and the cultures that shaped who I am today. The ability to hold multiple identities is not something I have to tolerate, but something I can embrace. Because isn't it so cool to be able to see the world from multiple perspectives at the same time, to be able to make sense of different worlds and understand people with more flexibility? It's not that I don't belong anywhere, but I actually belong to more than one place. So in this way, I am not just experiencing mestiza consciousness, I'm actually seeing it in a different side. And so this is the end of my last video in my freshman year. Thank you guys so much for being here, and I'll see you guys in the next one.